Watching Alabama's WVUA News, first at 4.
17 people were injured in last night's shooting. 3 of them were University of Alabama students, and 4 out of that 17 were critically injured. But you didn't have to get hit by a bullet to be wounded by the experience. Motivational speaker and author Scott Wimberly is here to tell us more. Scott, thanks so much for being with us today.
Sure.
And what I'd like to talk about today is when you're in a horrifying experience like Ethan, who was just with us, was in, and we've actually got another employee that was in the copper top whenever things happened, and we actually have a former intern that was hit by a bullet. So we've got 3 people that are connected to this. How do you get yourself over this mentally and emotionally to where you can begin to sleep and not be looking over your shoulder?
It's a good question. I'm looking to see who you're at. That's a tough question, but that's going to go back to, you don't get there starting, last night, today. You had to go back to last night and then go back. It's almost one of those things where you have to, the best time to have started would have been 6 years ago, getting ready for whenever your moment comes, because everybody has one of those moments. And a lot of times we don't realize we had one of those moments. People talk about the near-death experiences. You really don't know how many you've had. There may be, and me saying that is, you could have come close to having one and not realized it, never knew it. So you need to be, it's hard to say, you need to be prepared, but you do need to be that emotionally ready, because anything can happen at any given time. A year ago, the tornado come, we had a little bit of warning, things like that. Hurricanes, you have about a week, they know it's coming, that
Right.
weather type things. And,
Right.
all that, but this guy came out of just nowhere, nobody. Nobody had any warning. So you got to be prepared beforehand.
How do we prepare ourselves?
You got to know where you're going. If the worst did happen, which as of right now we're blessed that that hasn't happened in this case. But the one thing that everybody in the planet has in common is you're going to die one day. Sure. And I don't want to be morbid, but it's just the one thing we got in common.
Right.
And I would think being prepared to for that, where are you going to go? And because it don't have to be a gunman. It can happen anytime. Little town I grew up in South Alabama, we've had 3 people in less than a week have died. Now a large town, it's not, you see that all the time, but in a little small town of 5,000 people, everybody's touched by that.
Right, and that's very unusual too.
And everything comes in threes, and
so they say.
And while I was down there, I've been back and forth, down there with things, and people were saying, how do you prepare for that? How do you handle that? Because one was a long-term illness and one was an abrupt end. So you handle them the same though. You got to start preparing. What am I going to do? What would I do in that case? How am I going to react or respond? If you're not prepared, you're going to react. If you are prepared, you respond.
There you go.
Big difference, huge difference.
Tell us a little bit about when something like this happens to you and you have your near-death experience and you do realize it, something traumatic like last night. A lot of people tend to, and understandably, for maybe a day or so, they withdraw.
Sure.
Because they're frightened, they're dealing with feelings that they haven't felt before. But after a day or 2 of that, you really need to start being around people again, correct?
Right. Oh yeah. Well, everything's about other people, and we have that survivor's guilt, and we heard a lot of that again back with the tornado, But you're almost guilty because nothing happened to you. If you did, come through unscarred or unscathed at all, you deal with that survivor's guilt, and but that's a good thing to be able to deal with. And once you realize I am okay, now how do I turn this, even to help those that didn't or weren't so fortunate? But you have to, like you said, you have to deal with other people. You have to include other people because it is about the relationships and things that you've developed. And I seem like I'm talking in circles about this.
It's a difficult time.
It's a difficult time because everybody deals with it differently. They act the same, but they're dealing with it differently because you don't know what's going on in their head,
Right.
from the person that was the cause of this thing to the people that have been affected by it. You know, what was going through their mind?
That's an excellent
You know.
question. Scott, we're out of time, buddy, but it was good seeing you, and thank you for
Well,
speaking
thank you.
with us today.
Sure.
You can find out more about Scott, his books, and following the roadmap to your destiny online at scottwimberly.com.